Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. I'm Homero Galicia. We're fortunate to interview successful business owners to learn from them their story, how they built the business, the triumphs, the challenges they've had. And also we learn about our community. We trust that you will enjoy this program today. We're fortunate today to have with us a very successful engineer, an engineer who's built a large construction company, Mr. Oscar Venegas. Mr. Venegas, I appreciate you taking time to let us hear your story.
Thank you for inviting me, Homero.
Thank you. So your company is called VMAC. What does VMAC mean?
It's Venegas, so they would recognize my name. Engineering, because I'm an engineering. Management, because I manage construction projects. And construction, because I also construct projects. So it's short for Venegas Engineering, Management, and Construction.
Thank you. When did you start VMAC?
We celebrated 10 years last year.
Wow. Now you've had companies before that.
Prior to VMAC, I was part owner of another large construction company for 8 years.
So you've been in construction quite a few years.
All my life, 40 plus years.
Really? Wow. Did you know that you wanted to be a construction business owner when you were a young man?
When I graduated Burgess High School, I wanted to become an architect. And since I couldn't afford to go to architectural school, I enrolled in UTEP and got the closest thing, a civil engineering degree.
Wow. Did that satisfy that hunger you had?
Yes, I enjoy what I'm doing. I wouldn't have done it for 40 plus years if it's a very gratifying experience to see something, either just dirt to a finished product or a torn down, run down thing and make it new again. So
rebuild.
Yes.
So the construction side is really interesting.
Yes, it is.
And what year did you graduate from Burgess?
1969.
I remember some people that in that time frame. And then you went to UTEP. But what neighborhood did you grow up in?
I'm from the Tejas edition. I actually grew up on Tejas Street. And enjoyed growing up on that street. We also went to grade school at St. Pius around the corner. So.
Okay, right around. Were you born here in El Paso?
No, I was born in Juarez.
Okay.
And my dad brought me over here when I was 2 years old.
Okay. And so your mother and father are from Juarez?
Actually, my father's from Milky, Chihuahua.
Okay.
And my mother's from El Paso, Texas.
Really? From Meoki?
From Milky.
I know Meoki.
Do you? Very few people do.
I was in a train wreck in Meoki. Yeah. But, and so your father, what did he do? He came back to El Paso? And
my father spent most of his career loading and unloading airplanes for American Airlines.
A whole career?
His whole career, about 35 years.
And your mom?
My mom was a stay-at-home mom until my dad retired, and then she needed to go back to work to get away from my dad. So she worked at like the Learn Nerd store and the Popular store.
Yeah, downtown.
Yeah.
And how many brothers and sisters?
I have 3 brothers, no sisters. One of them's retired, then the other one lives in Dallas, and the youngest one's a state trooper here in El Paso.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you get a break if he catches you.
Well, right now he's working at Loma, so he's not on the streets.
Okay. And your father, what can you tell us about your father? What kind of a man was he?
Well, my father was a dedicated father. He didn't have a father growing up, so he wanted to dedicate himself to me and my 3 brothers. So he was, always sacrificed for us and believed very strongly in education. He wanted very much for me to go to college, and I know he sacrificed to pay my tuition to UTEP, and I bought my books and had a part-time job selling shoes at the Popular. But my dad was a very good man and instilled a lot of work ethic in us. He wanted us to succeed and to contribute.
So you started selling shoes at UTEP, at Popular when you went to UTEP?
That's what I did part-time, yes.
Wow. So you can look at feet and you know what size people wear.
Well, I know a comfortable shoe when I see it.
And your mother, what was your mother like?
My mother was I like to call her a perfect bilingual. She could speak English very well and she could speak Spanish very well. My dad had an accent in English. At home we spoke a lot of English, so I'm not a very good bilingual. I can understand Spanish and speak some Spanish. Of course, my kids being third generation, they can't speak or understand Spanish that well. But my mom's a very loving person. She was the disciplinarian. She spanked us when we got out of line. Also, she was politically active. She always worked the polls at Bassett Center.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yes, so she was active in the community, both at the church and
so she worked the elections.
She worked the elections.
Yeah, my mother used to work the elections.
They probably worked together.
Yeah, well, my mother worked at the fire station across from the Y.
Oh, okay.
on Rio Grande. But no, these women were dedicated. Huh?
Yes.
And what kind of a student were you at Burgess?
My high school and my college was always C's. Yeah, my senior year in college I made A's, but most of the times I was a C student. I always liked math though. I got through trigonometry in high school as an elective, and
wow.
Even though I wasn't an A student, I liked math.
So the histories and the Englishes were the harder courses for you.
Well, engineering helped me out because you only had to take 6 hours of English to get your engineering degree.
But back to your home. In your home, though, your father spoke English to you?
My father spoke English and Spanish.
Okay. So you grew up speaking both.
Yes. We were also blessed because both his mother and my mother's mother came to live with us when I was about 12, and they only spoke Spanish in the home.
Oh, okay.
So we had two grandmothers at the house too.
That speaking Spanish. Well, that was neat. So you got to know your grandmothers.
Yes.
That's neat. That's great. So what was UTEP like when you first started?
Oh, UTEP was those were good years. I have a sister-in-law that actually got in the protest. I even forget what it was about.
Yes.
Got hauled away on a bus.
Really?
Yes.
That was in the 70s. Yeah.
Yes, and I was an engineering student, so I was more of an observer than an active participant.
Yeah. If you were in social science, you probably would have been involved. But engineers stayed away.
Yes,
yeah, that's interesting.
Yes, and we carried slide rules.
Yes.
So we were very proud to put a slide rule on our belt and walk around campus with a slide rule.
So you grew up with a slide rule. You know how to work the slide rule.
Still, yes.
That's neat. I have a slide rule. I never learned how to use it.
Oh, they're very easy.
But do you still use a slide rule by chance?
Of course not.
Yeah, all computers. So so you finished at UTEP what, in 74?
74. It's 4 years.
Okay, good. Right away. Went right through.
Uh-huh.
Wow. And then what, you got to work right away?
What happened is I met my wife at UTEP, and she was a year behind me. So instead of taking a job out of town, I got a job with the International Boundary and Water Commission.
Okay.
And did that for about 3 months, and then got an offer from R.E. McKee Construction Company. And R.E. McKee Construction almost doubled what I was making. I think I was making $8,000 at the bureau, and R.E. McKee offered me $14,000, so I moved to R.E. McKee Construction Company.
You want to talk about that, but so when did you marry? Before you finished college?
No. After she graduated, then we got married.
Okay, but you were college sweethearts.
Yes, we met in history class because I was Venegas and she was Velarde, so we got assigned next to each other.
That'll be. So let me ask about R.E. McKee. What was that like?
I was lucky because in my senior year at UTEP, I worked for a civil engineering firm. So I had a little bit of experience of surveying. So when R.E. McKee hired me, they put me in the field right away. So I was outside. I can't remember my first project. It was I think it was a Commons office complex off of Mesa.
Yeah.
It was my first project.
Okay, okay. And how long did you work for R.E. McKee?
I worked there approximately, I think it was about 4 years.
Okay. Because he was a large international builder, or?
He was very large. He was, in those days, considered a mega contractor.
And what's interesting is Hispanics could do well with R.E. McKee.
Up to a point. I actually had a superintendent tell me that I was a very hard worker, and it was a shame that I was Hispanic, because I could not aspire to be a vice president or president.
Right. But there were some Hispanics that were supervisors, is that right?
Yes, there was. Yes, there was. Most of them were, to be honest with you, the better ones.
But not at the corporate level?
Not at the corporate level, no.
So you learned good construction? What did you learn there with R.E. McKee?
It was a very good foundation, because they had a very good accounting system and tracking system. So they had a very good quality control. So their systems were a very good training ground as to get your foundations, as to, you know, that the building be located in the right location, that it be securely founded, and that it be successfully executed. And they used to really pound that into the younger engineers.
Did you have an idea then that you wanted to have your own business?
No, not at that point.
When did that begin?
It was later, when I went to work. When I left McKee, I went to work for a company called Jordan and Nobles, and when I was working there, another Hispanic engineer, Jaime Torres, had become very successful in this business, and I wanted to give it a shot, emulate what he had done.
Now, he was independent.
He was independent.
He was a strong 8A subcontractor.
Yes, he was.
And he did well.
Yes, he did.
So you befriended Jaime Torres?
Yes, I talked to him about, you know, what steps he took and how he did it, and actually, at the time, the head of the SBA in San Antonio was another Burgess graduate named Ralph Murillo.
Yeah, I remember Ralph. Yeah.
And he said, "You wanna follow Jaime's steps? Come to San Antonio, and I'll get you in the 8A program."
He had moved to San Antonio.
He had already moved to San Antonio.
So you moved to San Antonio then?
Yes, my wife likes to say that we moved in the back of a beer truck to San Antonio. It's the first time I was in business.
You moved
in 1982.
So you started in San Antonio in your own construction company?
In my own construction company. Got 8A certified to start my own company.
So you worked for R.E. McKee for about 4 years. Then you worked for Jordan Nobles.
About 6 years.
Okay. Is Jordan Nobles, was that Paco Jordan and Nobles?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. That's where he started.
That's where they started out.
Okay. Okay. And so you, now Torres was Jaime Torres was kind of a mentor, or just a friend?
I think he was just the example that it could be done.
So you saw that people could build a construction, Hispanics could build a construction business.
Yes.
And that was important to you?
Yes, it was.
Because you had a lot of doubts?
Well, McKee put that doubt in my head.
Okay, okay. And so something happened that you overcame that doubt and started on your own.
Yes, yes. What's probably a very important part of my success is my wife, because when she graduated from UTEP, she graduated as a teacher first. Then she didn't like that and went back and got an accounting degree. And because of her accounting, she was able to tell me, "You're not making any money, you're not growing." She educated me on the financial aspects of your business, which is very, very important. You can't have success without having a good accounting systems.
Well, you go to San Antonio to start a business, but do you know people in San Antonio?
Ralph Murillo.
And that was it?
That was it.
But you got into the 8A program once you started?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Was that effective for you?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
No, it wasn't. What I found was that I didn't have any working capital, which means that that translates into no bonding. And to do work with the federal government, they wanted bonding. So I would have to agree to split the profits with some contractor that would provide me with the bonding, whether that was Jaime Torres or F.T. James, another local contractor here, or Paco Jordan. And what my wife was quick to point out after 5 years is that you can't grow without those profits. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I built a lot of things, and I felt successful, but I wasn't making any money.
So just to clarify, the 8A program is a federal program under SBA that allows minority business owners to be certified as minority and get some contracts with the government. But you have to market that to the government. I mean, it's not like they just don't give you contracts. You have to go market. Did you
Yes.
do that?
Well, because of my my engineering background and my previous construction background, it was I wouldn't say it was easier, but I was more marketable than let's say somebody that was a painter and they wanted to give them a cellular tower project with FAA. It's harder for them to market.
So it makes a difference to be an engineer.
It helps tremendously, I think.
And you're a PE, a professional engineer.
Professional engineer.
And you've kept your certifications.
Kept them current, yes.
So how does being a professional engineer help you in construction? What difference does it make?
I like to use the example that if you understand the soil conditions, if you understand the marketplace and the materials, you bring more value to the project. And since we've gone from delivery methods that are more selective, either design build or what they call construction management at risk, the owner is asking for these items. And as an engineer, we can make a clear and offers to the client that a normal person that's not familiar with engineering could offer.
So being an engineer is a value add.
It's a value add
In the construction area. So how long were you in San Antonio? I mean, you built a successful business in San Antonio?
I thought it was successful. My wife didn't. So after 5 years of trying that, she said, I'm going back to El Paso. Follow me if you want. If you don't want to,
Really?
Stay here. And I promised her I wouldn't go into business again. So I followed her back to El Paso and went back to work and ended up working for the company that I was half owner, Mario Montes, and enjoyed working for him. He did mostly work on Fort Bliss, and since I had 8A in governmental experience, until the point that he says, I'm ready to retire, either we'll start another company, call it Urban Associates, and you'll own 50% and I'll own 50%, or go get a job.
Wow.
So I went back and I asked my wife, I said, I know I promised you I wouldn't go into business again, but I need to find a job, or we need to come up with I think it was $150,000 to buy into the new company.
Wow. Now Mario Montes, urban construction.
Yes.
He was an R.E. McKee.
He was an R.E. McKee.
And his partner, earlier partner was R.E. McKee also.
Yeah.
Mr. Zambrano, right?
So we had the same systems.
Okay, so you knew each other from there, and
No, I didn't know them. I knew of them.
oh, okay, they were before you.
Yes.
Okay.
They were also very successful Hispanics that I was very proud to know them and aspired to be.
Let me ask about preparation for a successful business. How important is preparation?
Every business there's risk involved. So as an engineer, I always like to say you have to calculate that risk. So when you go into business, you have to plan for those risks. If you're not prepared and you take risks, you're going to fail if you don't calculate what that risk is going to be. And I think a lot of times in our enthusiasm, like I did the first time, you jump into it.
Okay. So is it safe to say in your first venture you didn't fully calculate the risks?
Yes. And I like to say that's where I got my master's in business.
Okay.
Because it turns out that And I probably, most businesses are the same as my business, is that like 1/3 goes to taxes, 1/3 goes to insurance, and 1/3 goes to profit, growing your business or maintaining your business. And if you don't understand those three, you may fail.
Well, those are inherent costs that you don't expect. You look at the profit, but you don't look at those other inherent costs.
No. Or you look at what you do. A lot of people are very good tradesmen. I call them owner operators.
Right.
And they excel at what they do, and they can do it fast and well, but they don't take into account, the other two items, taxes and the insurance costs to maintain what they want.
So as you work now you're part owner with Mr. Montes.
Yes.
in Urban and Associates.
Yes.
And you were there doing that how long?
About 8.5 years.
Okay, and you learned more there?
Yes, I you got to understand the surety portion of it, the guarantor person, the bonding. Now that I had a partner that had financial stability, wealth, then I understood that the bonding comes with that.
Is it fair to say, as a construction company trying to do federal business, that you grow your business depending on your ability to get bonded?
Definitely.
So how did you build your own bonding capacity?
By, not going out and spending the profits on new pickup trucks, and is saving the profits and trying to keep those profits in the company so that the bonding would grow concurrently with it.
Because as you have assets, your bonding capacity grows?
Yes, it's driven primarily by your liquidity.
Right. Now, you're having children being born at the time that you're building your businesses?
Yes. In fact, I pulled up to a bank one time, and I think my son was probably 8 years old, and he was asking me for something. And I said, well, if we can't afford it, son, I can't buy it for you. So he looks at the check on the seat of the truck, and he says, but Dad, you have $80,000 here. I said, but it doesn't belong to me, son. I have to deposit it and then pay the subcontractors and the vendors.
Oh, wow.
So
it's hard to...
So from his age, 9, 10, whatever age he was already learning a little bit about business.
How many children do you have?
I have 2. I have a son, David, who's also a civil engineer.
Okay.
And a daughter, Mary.
And your son, is he with you in the business?
No, he has his own business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Construction also?
Yes, but he's more of a niche construction person. He likes to do what they call place and finish, saw and seal, more highway, what they call horizontal work.
Oh, okay. And did he learn business through you, though?
Of course, me and my wife both.
Okay. And your daughter?
My daughter's the creative side. She does our marketing brochures and the presentation portion of it. So she likes that part.
And your wife, what role did she play in your growth?
She was very critical because she understands cash flow. She understands cash management. She understands growth, the costs, insurance. So even though she never worked directly in the last 18 years with me, she was always my consultant.
Now, she was successful in her own right.
Yes, she had a varied career. When we were in San Antonio, she actually carried the family. She got her CPA in San Antonio and worked for an actual gas and oil gentleman. Learned a lot about the railroad and having the regulations to go through drilling wells. She initially started with Jerry Rubin at Helen of Troy.
Really?
When they were in Chapter 11.
Really?
It's one of her first jobs.
Wow.
So
she's been through tough times.
Yeah, she ended up being president and CFO of Good Time Stores for a while. So before she retired.
And then that business had a full cycle, and they
sold.
They sold. Okay. So she had her own career, her own successful career.
Yes, she did.
CEO. So that helped you a lot?
Yes, it did.
And you listened to your wife?
Yes, I did. Don't we all?
But that, so when then did you start VMAC?
VMAC we started in 2003, and my son had graduated, and Mario's son was active in the business, and Mario's son at that point had bought a portion of Mario's shares, and my son, of course, hadn't bought any of my shares, and we decided that it was best for our sons if we split. And we did a nice transaction of basically at the accountant's office. We just kind of worked it out.
That's interesting. That's because you were actually thinking about preparing your sons. And
Yes.
And growing your sons into the business.
Right.
Oh, that's a fascinating concept of being able to get into that and understand that. And so in 2003 you started VMAC, but you've already had a whole bunch of years in construction.
Yes, the transition was very easy because of my clientele and my experience that I was able, and the bonding was already in place. So the transition was very easy. Yeah.
So you really built yourself up to be able to start a new successful business.
Yes, if you want to.
That was a process.
It's good analogy. Not until you put it that way that yes, that was the process. And I would advise anybody trying to get into business that they align themselves with a good mentor or associate.
So these people that you worked with were really learning grounds for you and mentors and.
Correct.
But you learned.
Yes.
You decided to learn.
Yes.
Was that part of your nature?
I enjoy learning new things and keeping up to date with the changes.
One of the things that is interesting about as you were beginning VMAC, you were working with Urban and Associates. You were owner with Mr. Mario Montes in Urban and Associates, and you were sharing that your children were of age. I expect they were of age. Was your son already an engineer at that time?
Yes, he was. He was
And Mario Montes' son was of age.
Yes.
And so it comes to a point to where you're saying, what are we going to do with the business, or how are we going to? What's the discussion that comes up?
Well, the discussion was that the boys probably couldn't get along as well as Mario and I got along.
Okay.
Is really the underlying factor that, Mario and I chose to go into business together, and they didn't choose to go into business together.
But you wanted to pass the business on to your children.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Okay. That's why that? Why did that come up?
The idea of building something is to pass it on, and that was the main goal. Now that I've been in business for a while, I understand that by the third generation, the success rate is very poor.
Yeah.
So that's the next challenge, I think.
So you decided to go off on your own, so that you can build something on your own. But you had the experience now. Now you had a different confidence.
Yes, because the industry was changing. When Mario and I, or when I started that business, the process was you filled out some forms and you put your price in there, and low bidder got it. But right around the year 2000, they started changing the laws and introducing what I call other delivery methods, what they call construction management at risk, construction management, design build, job order contracting. So there was all these new ways to build a project that were not the traditional R.E. McKee, Mario's style. It was more of having a track record, the ability to present, the ability to put together a proposal package that was attractive and complete and accurate. It wasn't just putting in a number anymore.
Okay. Wow. A lot of presentation.
Yes. Yes.
Now, when you first started your first business in San Antonio, moving from El Paso to San Antonio to start your business, what was the name of your first business?
It was Venegas Engineering Construction.
Okay.
There was no management back then.
and that lasted what was it?
Lasted about 5 years.
And then you come back to El Paso.
Then I come back to El Paso.
And you buy into with Mr. Montes into Urban Associates.
Correct.
And that was about 8 years, you said?
Yes, 8.5 years.
So when you started VMAC, you had 5 years of your own business, 8 years of a partnership in business, and now you feel prepared to start your own business. You're motivated. You know the business better. But one of the things that you're saying is you understood this new complex way of presenting proposals.
Yes.
So management at risk. What is that?
What management at risk does is it says, I want your fee structure, and your management pricing, and similar projects, at least normally 3 projects of a similar nature. I want you to describe those similar projects and also show how many projects you've delivered as a construction manager, and then we'll do a short list, and from the short list then they would go into oral presentations, and then from the oral presentations they would pick a firm.
So would you give the oral presentations or would you have somebody else?
I would give the oral presentations.
Because you knew the project.
Yes, and I would practice.
Sure,
yes.
Sure. And you were successful?
Yes, I had fairly good success at that.
With government contracts?
No, primarily with school projects.
Oh, okay. Now, before you were 8A, which allowed you to get government contracts as a minority business. Now, with VMAC, were you 8A right away?
With VMAC, I've never been 8A.
You never went back into 8A. Okay.
8A.
But you do government contracts now?
Yes. What you have to do in business, there was that very famous book is, "Where's My Cheese?" Right?
So who moved my cheese?
Okay, so in the let's say in the 2003 to 2000 maybe 6 or 7, there was a lot of bond issues that were passed for school building. So all the work was in school building, and most of the school building was the construction management at risk delivery method.
Right.
When that money finished, when those projects dried up, the Fort Bliss reallocation happened. So then I said, okay, it's time to get back into federal contracting.
Okay.
So then I looked very quickly at where's the competitive advantage, or where is the least amount of competition. And for me, it was to move into a hub zone area and to qualify as what they call a hub zone contractor. And that's when I moved from school business to federal business. And now I'm back into school business, and now I'm moving into some more highway type of projects.
Okay. So, because I know you built a building at Rio Grande and Cotton, right?
Cotton.
That's in the federally set hub zone, historically underutilized
business
zone, and that allows you to get federal contracts, as some government agencies have a preference to give business to women-owned businesses, hub-zone businesses, minority businesses.
Yes, I like to call it buckets. Okay, they have a bucket of what they call free and unrestricted competition, and then they have a bucket for 8A companies, and then they have a bucket of hub zone, and a bucket for small business.
So you have a vehicle, a purchasing vehicle the government can use.
Yes.
Now let me ask you, as you're building your business and as you've gone through all these, What were some of the challenges that you had to, major challenges you had to face?
I think the comment of a successful business is that it's never successful. It's always under construction. And the reason that I say that is because construction used to be a very old industry. For 80 years, everything was exactly the way it had been done for the previous 80 years. But recently, with the introduction of computers and what I call this globalization process and the competitive nature changing, it's very difficult to stay as you were. You got to keep up with what's changing in your industry.
How do you do that? How do you keep up?
Well, the one thing is you have to invest, and you know, we talked earlier about a slide rule. Okay, I'll give you for instance. I have 2 pieces of equipment, and what I'm able to do is I'm able to take the drawings as a CD and load them into that equipment. One is what I call a small blade, and it gives all the information to that piece of equipment, and it rotates and moves the dirt to the finished grade. Then I have another piece of equipment that you load the finished grades into it, and you put the concrete down, and it puts the concrete to the finished grades. So when you're finished, theoretically, all the water drains to the right place. A good example was we did all the concrete paving for the Fountains project.
Right next door
using
here.
those 2 pieces of equipment. Without those 2 pieces of equipment, we couldn't have done it in time, and we couldn't have done it at the price that they were giving me.
Wow. So is that a simulation program?
It's what they call a 3D modeling system.
Okay.
that you're able to put the drawings into the machine, and it's moving.
But because you're an engineer, you handle that very, very well. You understand that.
I understand it, and it's interesting because I found this out with my wife. Some people are 3D and some people are not. And by 3D, I mean if you look at a drawing, can you picture in your mind what it looks like 3-dimensionally? And that's what the computer software is doing for you.
Wow. Fantastic. You know, I like that because in running a business, it's good to have a critical analytical mind in looking at running as you're doing the doing, you also have to see what you're doing.
Yes.
From another perspective.
Yes.
And it's hard. That's hard to grow to that level.
Yes.
So were those machines expensive?
Yes, they were expensive.
Like what kind of expensive?
About the concrete ones, like about I got it used at about $250,000.
But that was an investment you made in your business.
Yes, it was.
And it's paid for itself.
Yes, it has.
Ah. So you got to be willing to invest in your business.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Do you set aside a certain amount to invest in your business?
I hate to go back to taxes, but there was a tax incentive that was put in place about 5 years ago for companies to invest in equipment for construction.
Right.
With accelerated depreciation. So we took advantage of the accelerated depreciation. Hurt me last year because I hadn't made any new investments. So I do look for those labor savings, latest inventions that are coming out all the time.
So how many employees do you have now?
I think I have between 80 and 90 employees.
Wow, that's a large piece of equipment. How many large pieces of equipment do you have?
I have about $2 million worth of equipment.
Sure. It's a big investment.
Big investment.
And so how large are the projects you do now?
I do from remodeling the L&J restaurant.
Yeah. Oh, you're doing that. That's right. I saw your trucks there.
Did a Lordsburg project for the Border Patrol, $26 million.
26 million. That's right. I saw that you won that one.
Yes.
Wow. And that's out of town now. Is that more expensive to travel?
Very expensive to travel.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that's a good project.
Yes, it was.
Now, your son is in business too.
Yes, he is.
Does he office with you, or he has his own office?
He has his own section. Yeah.
Okay, and what does he do?
He primarily does subcontracting. And to explain the difference is, I like to act as the prime contractor, so I have the direct contract with the owner or the client, and he likes to be the subcontractor to a prime contractor. He's doing a lot of work for Bain's General Contractors right now.
Does he do work for you?
Occasionally he'll do stuff for me. We try to keep that to a minimum.
As you're growing your business, what kind of relationship did you have with the banks? Were they friendly?
That's very important part of your business. If you don't understand banking and you don't have a banking relationship, it can hurt your business. And I was originally with a local bank, and they did a very good service and provided the things that I needed. But as my company grew, I moved to a global bank, and I'll give you an example. I have what they call a purchasing card, and it allows me to charge up to $700,000 a month, and if that allows me to be very current on my bills, and it extends my credit with that vendor for an extra 30 days. A smaller local bank probably doesn't have that service. So
that's nice. So you can float.
Yes.
Almost a million.
I call it my line of credit.
Yeah, $750,000 a month.
Yes.
A month.
A month.
But you need that.
Yes, you do.
If you didn't have that, what would happen?
The cash would be depleted, and it would hurt your operating capital.
And it would hurt your growth.
It definitely would hurt your growth, because at the end of the year, when you do your audited financial statements, the surety companies like to see the liquidity portion or the cash or the investments be the greatest part of your financial statement in order to give you more bonding. A lot of contractors don't understand that.
So you really had to understand the financial side of the business.
Yes, yes. You have to take your financial statements, and you have to interview and sell that guarantor what's in those financial statements and why that's in those financial statements.
You have to know your financials.
Yes, you do.
Well, you've been well coached.
Yes, I have.
Your wife has helped you.
I have two. I have a very good accountant. I want her to get her CPA, but she hasn't gotten it yet. She's been with me for about 12 years, a couple of years at Urban, and then 10 years with me at VMAC.
I heard you make a presentation. It was in 2009, I believe. And you said something about the value of these stories, the Hispanic business story. And I want to recall that, because you said something interesting. Do you recall that presentation?
Yes, I do. What came out in that presentation was that when I started in my career and even looking at business, other Hispanic business owners would tell me things such as, don't use your name, because Hispanic businesses won't get work, because who wants to give Venegas Plumbing a job when there's a Smith Plumbing that is available? So they would say, don't use your name and keep a very low profile. That way you'll get more work if you fly under the radar, as I said that speech. And at that speech I said, I think our time has come to fly above the radar, that people should be proud of their Hispanic heritage. They should be proud to promote themselves and to promote others of Hispanic heritage. It's a value added.
So that was important that you saw that change. I appreciate it.
I'm glad that I got to go through that where I could appreciate that. It's kind of like when I tell people when they say interest rates are rising. My first mortgage was at 17%.
Wow.
Yeah. When you get to be my age, you've lived through all of these things, and and I'm very appreciative that I got to live, from one era to today's era. We
You're
still have
also-
ways to go, but
Well, you're also a very strong alumni of UTEP, and I know I've asked you to come to speak to my class, and you give a lot to UTEP.
Yes, I do.
Why do you do that?
the UTEP's system is doesn't really change, but it puts out a student. Earlier we talked about my parents, being very good in Spanish. That you could call it their primary language, and then looking at me where I'm quasi bilingual, and looking at my third generation where they're just English speaking. If you go to UTEP, that process reinvents itself. You're having a first generation, second generation, and third generation, and that's unique to UTEP. You don't find that anywhere else. So there's like a hunger, an involvement that I think the students bring to bear. I have a female engineer that works for me. She's an American citizen, born in El Paso, but she really was initially raised in Juarez, and she's the first, what they call, American Concrete Institute certified transportation holder in the state of Texas.
Wow.
As a female.
Wow.
And she took the test once, and she passed it. And I encouraged her and the other engineers to go back and get their construction management degrees from UTEP, because now UTEP offers a construction management degree. Brand new program. They just added it up 4 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure.
Were you part of encouraging that?
Yes, I was even invited to help select the department head of that department,
Wow.
Dr. Marshall.
So you're also involved in other things in the community, though.
Yes, I like to advocate for the Hispanic Chamber. I think it's very important that the Hispanic business person be advocated for, because we're 80-90% Hispanic. So what's good for the Hispanic business is good for our community. It only makes sense to advocate for Hispanic business. And I like to be involved in the chamber lately. Of course, in my university's items, the church, of course, and every once in a while, because of an industry event, I'll help out. Like the Boy Scouts, they have a construction section that they invite me to, and that I sponsor. So yes, I try to stay very active in the community.
So what challenges are you facing now?
I think the biggest challenge is that El Paso's being discovered.
Why is that a challenge?
Because there are so many larger, more financially capacity coming to El Paso. We have quite a few, and so when you do a presentation, they might ask. I'll give you an example for our new bond program. So, how many museums have you built in the last 5 years, Mr. Venegas?
Wow.
So, I did the El Paso Museum of Art when it was a bus station and converted it into a museum.
You did that, okay.
But that was 18 years ago.
So what you're saying is you're competing with national companies that are huge.
Yes.
And they're now doing business here.
Yes, they are.
They're going after the same contract you were going after.
Correct.
And they have bonding capacity like crazy.
They have bonding, and the bonding capacity, yes, it's a challenge, but it's more the track record, more
Okay.
that they can bring to bear all those specialty items that the client may be looking for.
So are you losing contracts to these large contractors because they have more experience with large projects?
Not so much the large projects. It's the specialty projects.
Okay.
Okay, like if you took our University Medical Center, for instance.
Yeah, that's out-of-town contractors.
It's an out-of-town contractor. And what are they doing? They're doing a little remodeling on the third floor, a little remodeling at the basement. But it may have a X-ray machine in there, and they want your company to have that expertise. So the federal government, through the hub zone, creates those opportunities, more level playing field for me. And like I just finished an entrance to Fort Riley in Kansas. I finished a design build at Fort Riley in Kansas. You know, we talked about the Lordsburg project. So the government, if it's in that bucket, which they call a IDIQ MATOC, and they ask you for a task order bid against the other selected bidders, then that gives you a variety. And sometimes you can use those that track record into what's happening locally.
So an IDIQ is like a blanket. It's indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity.
Correct. I'm sorry.
So they give you a blanket, and you can
Right.
job order that.
Right. Task order.
Task orders. So so tell me about your legacy and what it's been for you to build a successful business. What's that been like?
You know, you really don't realize it as you're going through it, because you're always, in my case, I'm a construction company. I'm always looking for that new project, and I'm always under pressure to finish the last project. So you go through these years and you don't even realize what's transpiring. The only thing that really gives you a picture is if you take the financial statement in 2003 and the financial statement in 2013, that tells the picture of growth.
So every year there's been growth.
Well, there's been some down years. I mean, if someone were to tell you, I've never lost money on a project, that would be hard to believe, you know. So there are projects that you lose money on. And I'll give you an example. The federal courthouse was a big loss for me.
Really?
Yes.
That was...
I did all the concrete work on that federal courthouse.
Really?
Yes.
People were blaming the architect, and they were blaming all kinds of things.
Yes.
So that was a costly project for you.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Aye. It's a beautiful building.
Yes. Yes.
But it was costly. Wow. Well, that's a fascinating story. So what is your legacy to the El Paso community as a man who's built a good business? What is that legacy?
I think we discussed it a little bit earlier that any child in El Paso can aspire to be a successful business person. I don't want to mislead them that they can start an auto manufacturing company, compete with Ford, but they can surely open restaurants and construction companies and service companies and be successful at it. And I encourage them to do it.
And your future is to still grow your business.
Of course, it's still time to grow my business.
And contribute to this community.
Always. I think you have to give back. I mean, there are such wonderful examples of business people that are giving back now that you see it in the paper every day.
Sure, and that's a new stage for us as Hispanics in El Paso, is to be in a place where we can give back to the community in a large way.
Yes, and you know, they have to be approached. They're very giving, but for some reason the Hispanic has to be approached
in a certain way, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Venegas, I really appreciate your story. It's a powerful story, a meaningful story, and let me ask, what is it that you've liked about telling your story?
Some of the past history is were very good times. You find an inner peace of chasing something and be accepting of failure and of your successes. That it's very gratifying.
So you've accepted yourself as, with all these things that you've had to go through and ups and downs.
Correct.
And you've had your share. Well, Mr. Venegas, I really appreciate your sharing your wonderful story with us. I trust that the viewers find it meaningful and encouraging. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day. Bye.